Hello and welcome back to this Library of Ruina series. In this video, we'll be taking on the second phase of the Keter Realization, Aspiration. This phase often has even higher rolls than Risk Cutter, so let's get started. I brought the same key pages as last time, but modified the passives and pages a little bit. My purple tier went Overcharge Guard Stance with Iron Wall instead of Serpentine Barrier and has Finishing Touch, Energy Discharge, and Double Hauler. Olivier has a fairly standard singleton deck with Let's Have Some Fun and Crimson Claws with Myongest and Double Hauler. Eileen has Blunt and Smoken with Eye of Death Enervation, Excess Supply, and Fervor. And Tanya has the same defensive focus deck but with Divinatory Impact instead of Beyond with Puppet Strings and double defensive power. Angela also gets access to 2 ego pages. The Will to Stand Up Straight mirrors 4th Match Flame, being a 5-cost mass summation, rolling 12 to 40 slash and inflicting 5 burn on hit. The Rationality to Maintain Discretion mirrors Regret, being a 5-cost melee page, rolling 6 to 8, 6 to 8, 9 to 19 blunt, with the first 2 dice dealing 10% of the target's current stagger is stagger damage, and the third die dealing 50% of the target's current stagger is stagger damage. We'll be using both of these ego pages during the fight. Alright, now for the boss. You'll be fighting Aspiration and 4 Lungs of Craving. Aspiration has 600 HP, 600 stagger, is weak to all damage, ineffective to all stagger, and has 5 passives. Palpitating is just shimmering. Pulsating Motion is behavior for the fight, making a change from defensive to offensive every 4 scenes. Mnemonic Rally makes Aspiration spawn Lungs of Craving after her offensive scene, losing 30 HP for a lung spawned, but delaying it if she's staggered. Aspiration Pneumonia, which staggers her after 8 or more allies have been killed, and Scattered Wishes, which makes it so that when she's staggered, the amount of hankering and the number of scenes before switching behavior are reset. The Lungs of Craving have 125 HP, 120 stagger, are endured to all stagger, and have 2 passives. Craving, which gives the lungs a unique effect related to hankering, and Fervent Beats, which makes it so that if they are only 1 or 2 lungs, they lose their craving effect and gain Fervent Beats instead. Fervent Beats makes the character die in 3 scenes, but at the start of each scene gives them 4 strength, endurance, haste, and protection. Additionally, stagger resistances are changed to ineffective. If Aspiration isn't in her offensive scene, use special combat pages, and when Aspiration goes through her offensive scene, Fervent Beats is removed. Your main enemy during the fight will be the 4 Lungs, as during the first 4 scenes, Aspiration will only be casting copies of Pulsation, which has 3 20 to 20 block counter dice that deal bonus stagger damage equal to the dice roll and clash win. Obviously, it's pretty much impossible to break through these, so we can ignore it for now. The Lungs will all get 1 of 4 unique craving effects, and it shuffles around between attempts, so make sure you know which one is which. The Effort gives 1 hankering to Aspiration on hit, but if the character fails to deal any damage at the end of the scene, Aspiration loses 2 hankering. This Lung will be casting 2 copies of Turbulent Beats, which rolls 5 to 8, 5 to 8, 4 to 7 blunt, and power nulls itself in the target's page. The power null means your Myongest character will be less effective, so I'd use your purple tier's Overcharge or Display of Affection or Token of Friendship to clash into it. Eileen's Ever-Spinning Gear Wheel or Loss of Senses, as well as Tanya's Duel can also work, but they all have certain weaknesses that make it suboptimal. The Faith gains strength and endurance equal to half the amount of hankering Aspiration has rounded up at the start of each scene. It'll be casting 1 copy of Heartbeat and 1 copy of Inclination. Heartbeat rolls 4 to 8 pierce, 4 to 8 block, 4 to 7 pierce, with both pierces inflicting 2 bleed next scene on hit. This page can be beaten by most of your 3-cost bombs normally. Display of Affection and Jewel work particularly well because they don't lose damage to the block on 2. Inclination rolls 4 to 7, 4 to 6, 4 to 5 blunt, with all the dice giving 1 hankering to Aspiration on hit, but if none of the attacks lands, Aspiration loses 1 hankering. This page should be clashed into by your Myongest die to avoid giving Aspiration hankering. The Pain gives 4 hankering to Aspiration whenever an ally dies. It'll be casting a copy of Heartbeat and a copy of Retracting Beats. Retracting Beats rolls 4 to 8, 4 to 8, 4 to 8 block, with the first block inflicting 1 feeble and clash win. You can ignore this page as there are no offensive dice, but if you do clash into it, I'd recommend using a defensive focus page to lose the least amount of damage to the block dice. Finally, the Weight gives 3 hankering to Aspiration at the end of every scene. It'll be casting 2 copies of Retracting Beats. For this phase, you're going to want to focus down the Weight first, then kill the other ones on the same scene, leaning towards killing the Pain before then. This will minimize the amount of hankering that Aspiration will get, which will become useful very soon. Notably, on the second scene, you should use the Will to Stand Up Straight to help kill the enemies before they can build up too much hankering. If you high roll, you can often make it so that Aspiration only has single digits on hankering. On the 4th scene, Aspiration will go on the offensive, gaining strength equal to the amount of hankering she has. Ideally, this is a very low amount, but it'll often be high 10s or even into the 20s if you're particularly unlucky. During this scene, any remaining lungs will be casting Wishes, which has two 6 to 10 block counters and should be ignored. Aspiration will be casting 3 different pages. Beats of Aspiration, which is a mass summation rolling 15 to 15 blunt that on hit gives 1 strength and haste to all other allies next scene, and on use deals 40 damage to self and makes all other allies fully recover HP. 15 isn't high, but you need to remember that Aspiration will have a large amount of strength, so use your strongest pages. True Trigram formation with the Endurance or Strength prescript, Overcharge, Ever-Spinning Gear Wheel, Divinatory Impact, and Angela should use the Rationality to maintain discretion. Aspiration will also be casting Crave, which rolls 5 to 5 Pierce that inflicts 10 bleed next scene and recovers 30 HP on hit, as well as having 2 3 to 6 block counters, and 2 copies of Stumbling Steps, which rolls 2 to 4, 2 to 4, 2 to 4 slash, all recovering 20 HP on hit, as well as having a 46 block counter. Depending on the amount of hankering on Aspiration, you can sometimes clash into this with your strong pages, but oftentimes Crave will be mitigated with a block on 1, and Stumbling Steps will be redirected to a Sacrificial Librarian, usually Tanya for me. Also know that it's extremely important for the Rationality to maintain discretion to hit, so if Aspiration has more than 16 or so strength, you might want to consider just tanking it on Angela, as the average summation for that page is 28 without any strength, and 31 with Puppeteer strings. Around this point, you should get your first tier 2 abnormality page. What you're going to want to do is take Learn and put it on your purple tier. Then, when Aspiration's behavior resets, you're going to clash it into her Pulsation, and because Guard Stance gives +2 defensive dice power, Pulsation will take 44 stagger damage per clash, stack up to 12 times, which is 528 stagger damage. If the Rationality to maintain discretion hit, then you'll easily stagger her, and you can use all your slower speed dice to free hit into Aspiration, killing her either on that scene or the scene after. Use your speed dice that are higher than or equal to your purple tier's highest speed die to redirect pages away from lower stagger targets, and you shouldn't have any problems killing her. If you're more cheese adverse, then you'll just repeat the cycle, using the Rationality to maintain discretion again to get the stagger and kill her at that time. In the next video, we'll be taking on the next phase of the fight, Marionette. I'll see you soon, and as always, thank you for watching.